What up? Welcome to How to Design an Album Cover Part 2. If you want to watch the first one, and I strongly recommend that you do, I'll put a little link to it right here. In this video, we're going to spend some time creating graphic treatments. What are graphic treatments? Good question. And also, I like what you're doing with your hair. Basically, we are going to treat the graphics. We're going to take them to brunch and buy them some mimosas. The graphics being the photos or illustrations, and the treatments being effects. It's like we're going to add some reverb, distortion, and chorus to our lead guitar. Let's hit some riffs. So before I begin showing you what I'm going to do in Photoshop, I will say this isn't necessarily going to be a Photoshop tutorial. There are plenty of people that can do a better job at that. But this is just to walk you through the kind of thoughts that I have as I'm working on album art. You can use these same techniques or thought processes whenever you're working on album covers in Canva or Corel Draw or Microsoft Paint. Probably not that last one. One thing that I have created to make my life a lot easier is I do have a template already set up in Photoshop with the right dimensions, and it has logo files on it, and templates are very important in any creative process. If you're working on a song and it's like an indie folk song and you do a lot of those, definitely take the time to make yourself some templates that already have the drums in there, already have your presets, already have like an organ you like to use all the time. Again, there are some things across the board are good ideas for any creative process, one of them being a template. Now that I got this template over here, I can just look at the photos that Chuck loaded for me, and yeah, I think there's something here that we can play around with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag that into my artboard here. I'm just going to move it to make sure it's on the right layer after placing it. And the first thing that I do is just get a sense of how to crop it. And I'm going to scale this up and it'll stay within the bounding box. Once I get it to where it, takes up the whole space, I can play around with the location. First thing that I'm seeing is it definitely works that I've got this space right here. One thing as a designer that I'm always looking at is how things relate to each other. You can think of this as kind of like a mix, how the bass guitar interacts with the drums. You don't want those to compete. Same thing here, you don't want elements to compete. So if I had him all up in this business, yeah, it'd be messing with the logo. And so, hey, I got the space over here. That might be kind of cool. Also, it's kind of nice that it's not just straight centered. I love symmetry, but also it's nice to be asymmetrical sometimes. It creates a little bit more drama. One thing that I'm looking at too, this shadow is kind of also competing with the top line vocals. I can try to play around with, can I get that out? Really it'd be awesome if top line vocals just existed right here without anything getting in the way. I might try to flip him too, that's another tip. One thing, if you're flipping a picture, just keep in mind if there's text on the person in any way, something to give away that they are flipped. You can still do it, but it makes your job a lot harder. Oh, look at there. And what's great is now it doesn't even get in the way of TLV, except for I want it to go up a little bit. Like, it'd almost be nice if this was all black then, if that was the case. And I kind of don't like that there's this little line right here showing up. This is something that I call tangents. A lot of times when you see little breaks like this, it'll draw your eye to it. As a designer, you're trying to control where they're looking. You can think about this little piece right here as like a tambourine that's too loud in a mix. You want the tambourine there, but you don't want it like taking attention away from other things. So what I might do is just Photoshop this to where it's all the same color, and I might try to make his shadow take up more of the TLV number over here. This just means top line vocals and what number album this is for the music library. To do those kinds of things, I need to flatten this image. About to F it up. But always keep a copy. You want to work in a non-destructive fashion when you're working on creative things, which means you never want to get rid of information that you might need later. And there's no reason to. You can save different versions throughout your journey, whether you're working on a mix or whether you're working on album covers. Now what I'm going to do is just play around with cloning this part and working on the shadow. The cloning tool is kind of cool. Basically, I've got a paintbrush that's going to paint on the picture, and I select what it's going to paint by holding down Alt and then selecting an area of the photo. It's not going to bring in the logo because that's on a different layer. It's just on this one layer right here. Alright, that's good enough. Now my eye's not going to that little area enough. And for this shadow here, I think I'm just going to paint a shadow myself. What I'm going to do is get the same color of the shadow And I'm just going to play around with just drawing a line. Kind of connecting it. I just wanted to cover up the TLV01. And it's good that this is organic, what I'm doing. That I'm kind of, going kind of bumpy. Because that's how the shadow would be. And I'm going to make it bigger. And I'll just close this gap here a little bit more. So that way. I feel like I keep my mouth open when I'm editing stuff like this. One thing that I might need to do is blur the edge of this when I finish. Probably make it look a little bit more real. So to do that, I think there's like a blur tool in here. There is. And so I can just come around this. Oh no, I painted right on the photo. See? That's good that you have this down here. It's fine. I'm going to keep it. I meant to put that on this layer so I could manipulate it. But you know what? I still got this guy right here, so it's fine. It's fine. Here we go. So now when I do this, it's going to blur both the layers. But it should look pretty realistic if I do it right. I'm just drawing on it with a blur tool. It'll soften up that edge. Looks alright. This one looks a little sharp, so I'll kind of blur that a little bit. There we go. Alright, now that we got that done, I'm going to go ahead and save. Boys and girls, lemurs and squirrels, make sure you save a lot. Not the grocery store. For those of you that don't live in the South, you probably don't get that reference. Quick sidebar. I was not drinking enough water. Painfully dehydrated most of the time. I learned that it's easy to learn a new habit if you stack it in with another habit. They got a term for this that if I remember to Google it, I'll put it on the screen. I probably didn't put it on the screen. What I decided is I got the habit of saving my documents when I'm working on it. Whether that is a video file that I'm editing or a Photoshop file that I'm doing something with or a Logic file for music, I've got the habit of I hit save all the time. And so I started to bring in this habit that every time I hit save, I would consciously think to pick up my glass of water and drink it right after I hit save. Now I've created like a Pavlov's dog scenario. When I hit save just then, my mouth was like, I'm so dry, and I got no water. I just got a place to put water. One idea I had, Chuck had these other images here that have kind of like a grunge effect. It's like you're zoomed in on graffiti, but I like this one because it seems within the color palette of the other albums I looked at Trap. And I'm thinking there might be a cool way to bring this into this one. I think he saw it as two separate pieces, but I'm going to play around and see if I can blend them together. All right, now we get this photo in here as a top layer, and what I'm thinking is we can play around with blending it into the other photo, like an overlay. First thing I'm thinking is just from the way I'm wanting the motion to go, I kind of want the darker colors to be at the bottom so they don't compete with the logo information. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to scale it up so that it fits the space, and I'm going to kind of bring it up so that's not, it's not in the way there. I mean, that in itself looks pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. It's got a really neat vibe. But let's play around with some different blending modes. And again, you can do this kind of stuff in Canva. You cannot do it in Microsoft Paint, though. And a lot of times what you can do is just kind of cycle through them and see what you like and what you don't like. You can see just this alone is kind of creating a cool effect. I kind of like that one. That one's kind of neat. That one's cool because it's subtle. That's overlay. And I said, an overlay effect. I wasn't meaning it literally. Soft light's kind of cool too because it's still kind of muted. And like a lot of things, I could go through here and I could overthink this stuff. Sometimes you just have to make a decision. And that is the same for songwriting. That is the same for producing a track. Sometimes it's just best to make a choice than to labor on what the different choices are. So I'm gonna try this overlay one. What I'm gonna do is I'm also gonna maybe play around with an adjustment layer right here, and I'm gonna play around with this, just like what does it look like if I make this photo actually black and white. And here's what's kind of cool about doing layers like this. You can have a mask and you can paint out part of this adjustment layer. So we liked that the boots earlier were that it was a color and it was popped. We can come in here now and I can paint back in the color of those boots by clicking on the mask and painting in black. What it does is basically punches a hole in this layer to reveal the layer underneath that's not black and white. See this? Starts to show up. If I recall, there were a few other small subtle places that had color, so I could probably do that. This is a very simple trick you can do in design, is make the photo black and white and then decide which things that you want to have color show through. I think his necklace had some color to it, if I recall. Like with design, like with music, you're trying to guide someone's ear to listen to certain things with music. You're also trying to guide people's eyes to notice certain things. So this is one way to do that. It's looking pretty good. I think I want to do additional adjustment layers just to see if I can make it pop. You hear that all the time in design. This is a curves. I don't know much about curves. I just know I get in there and I'll just start pulling on some things and seeing what it does, and then I decide if I like it or if I don't like it. You can definitely play around with the contrast. You know, you can make it like a poster. Yeah. That's kind of cool. And what's cool is I can decide if I actually do like it by turning it on or off. Kind of like it. I think that's all I want to do right now with the graphical elements. Next, I want to look at different types of fonts, and I want to work on the title. The trucks in this town are so loud, they're always ruining my takes. If you enjoy this video, but you feel like you want to go a little deeper into the world of writing for TV and film, well, surprise, surprise, do I have a product for you. Tools for Television. How to break into songwriting for TV, film, and advertising. It's an ebook that complements this video series, and I have a few more resources in there to help you have a clear roadmap on where to get started today. If you want to get more of these songwriting tips and tricks, be sure to whack, wallop, smack, thwomp that like and subscribe. You know what? I'm not good at this. I'm not good at self-promotion. Don't even like and subscribe. I don't deserve your love. Bye-bye. Bleep bleep. I think it's a motorcycle.